Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heart lines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker. What I'm about to tell you is a story of one woman who refused to look away from the atrocities on our television screen and news feeds. From her comfortable life in New Mexico, Lenya Heitzig allowed her heart to break at the plight of refugees and the deaths of innocent children, and then she begged God for a job to do. It all started with a simple question: what can I do to help children impacted by terror? The answer was far simpler than she expected, the kind of answer that at first sounded powerless in the face of such overwhelming evil. But that answer she received was to love. Answering that call to love eventually took Lenya to the far reaches of the world. Lenya Heitzig has a fascinating story to tell about the epic way God answered her prayers through a spark of an idea that came to life. That idea was to turn weapons of war into something beautiful, spent bullet casings into jewelry, and battlefields into playgrounds. She founded Reload Love Ministry with an aim to do just that. The ministry has a threefold purpose: upcycle bullet casings into brass jewelry to raise awareness about terrorism in the world, empower people to stand up for terrorism around the world, and provide hope through relief supplies, children's programs, and safe spaces for children in war-torn countries. The Love Bomb is Reload Love's annual virtual fundraiser that takes place the week of Valentine's. That's this week. Each year, they carefully select a region and use those funds to provide hope through safe spaces, children's programs, and other projects while sharing the good news. Lenya Heitzig's heart is to reach out to hurting people through tangible acts of love. The founder of Reload Love, a ministry which touches the lives of children affected by terrorists. Lenya also serves as the executive director of She Ministries at Calvary Church, pastored by her husband Skip. For more on Lenya and her ministry, visit Reload Love. Here to talk about Reload Love is our good friend, Lenya Heitzig. Lenya, welcome back to Revealing the Truth.
It's so fun to be with you, Rabbi Eric. I grin ear to ear when I know we're going to get to have a chat. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. It is it's a lot of fun, but it's so very important. And here we are, Valentine's week, where the virtual fundraiser is going on. So let's talk a little bit about the bigger picture. And as I'm looking at your website, you quote quite a few statistics that people are just not aware of. I think America is just so self-absorbed, so self-consumed. I go to Israel every year, and Israel has an outward view of looking to provide, they hear about an earthquake, they send humanitarian aid and medical crews and supplies immediately without it being asked. Their government, their State Department calls, another State Department says, we're sending this, we're sending ambulances, we're sending medical personnel. They have immediate response to global kind of needs. But there are statistics, and I want to hear them from you, about how many people are forced from their homes around the world and how many children are impacted by this. And I think the numbers are so staggering that when people hear it, that they're going to want to be able to do something about it, and we're going to give them that call to action. Several times during the program, I want to tell them how they can participate in this virtual fundraiser that's going on right now.
Thank you. We call our virtual fundraiser dropthelovebomb.com. And you're right, the statistics are staggering and sobering. In Syria alone, 2 million children have disappeared, so to speak. They are no longer a part of that culture. And so the UN considered that like a crisis of epic proportions. They say that they have lost a generation, which means the teachers, the firemen, the nurses, police, they are not there, that next generation to rise up and fill some of those places. And that's just one horrific statistic. What's kind of exciting, right now is that the last bastion of ISIS is about to fall in Syria. I think you've seen that on the news, and that the coalition is doing what they can to stamp that out. We have partners there that are actually there in Syria, some few clicks away from the front line. But for the last few days, ISIS family members have been fleeing. And so women and children who are, as I'm saying this, ISIS family members, the last hold, they were told that they were going to be raped, they would be beaten, and all kinds of stuff. And I just got a text today from that team, and one woman turned to them and said, "Are you sure it's okay?" as they were handing her blankets and water and taking her in. And she said, "We were told we would be raped, tortured, and killed by the enemy if we left ISIS." And she just said, "This is amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you." So even though there are innocents, who have been victims of this crisis, there are also family members right now. And the love of Christ compels us. He says to love our enemies, to do good those who curse us. And so even in this crisis, right now, that's what's happening in Syria.
Your website shows that 65,300,000 people have been forced from their homes around the world. 21,300,000 children worldwide have been left homeless over the last decade due to terror attacks and human rights violations. 21,300,000 children impacted by terrorism and human rights violations. 34,000 people are forcibly displaced every day because of conflict or persecution, and many of them are children. We're not talking about the southern border caravans. We're not talking about the southern border crisis. We're talking about a global problem that spans far past the borders of the United States and what's going on. It extends to Bulgaria, to the Middle East, to South Asia, especially in Cambodia, Iran, Iraq, Bulgaria, many, I think to date, you have now been in 22 countries, building playgrounds and providing humanitarian support. Since you started this in just 2014, Reload Love has had an incredible impact and has grown far beyond what you envisioned when you asked the simple question. So tell us what you're doing, how you do it, what successes you've had with it, and what the vision going forward is now that we're 5 years into this.
Thank you. The original vision was literally, I wonder if you could take spent bullet casings, turn them into brass charms, and help babies impacted by terror. Just one simple string of a thought, maybe a couple of pearls on a strand. And I'm not a gun, I don't own a gun, I don't shoot guns. So it's not like that organically came from someplace in me. But I think I'm one of those people that likes truths held in tension. And in my head, I just thought bullets and babies don't mix. I think that was where it started. And it sounded like a really attention-getting comment. And I am pretty sick and tired of politicizing issues and polarizing issues and demonizing people. And I thought, what if we could take this whole comment about gun rights and, gun rights, terrorism, immigrants, all of those, can we get some to irreducible minimums? And maybe the irreducible minimum is bullets and babies don't mix. Maybe we could start there and find like-minded people who want to do something about that. And so that's kind of where we started. And we began with just a few pieces of jewelry. And of course, we could never sell enough jewelry to help kids impacted by terror. So we also have a lot of donors. And these are grassroots donors. They're not high dollar amounts. So what we're doing this week that you're talking about, we do something we call Drop the Love Bomb. and it is a virtual fundraiser. This is our largest fundraiser of the year. What we like to do is pick a ridiculous amount that we think only God could do, and we ask him, could he do that in this virtual week? So we set the goal of $100,000, $93,000 over the weekend. And over the weekend, we raised $107,000. So God blew right beyond what we could hope or ask for. And then this week, we're reaching out to our social media, radio. We have 350 radio stations that are going to join us this week. And so we've bumped our level to $148,000 because God's already blown through what we had planned. So we're asking people, just come on, donate, buy a piece of jewelry, do what you can do, pray with us. And then 100% of everything we raise this week during the Love Bomb goes to the field. None of it is to underwrite any of our expenses or overhead. When we do this crazy fundraiser, we like to send 100% to the kids on the field.
Well, I think it's fascinating. The production of the jewelry.
Yes.
Where are you doing that? How did you make that happen, and how has that grown?
Well, when I first had the bullets, I drove down to a place in town called Southwest Silver, and I said, can you make jewelry? Yes. They assumed silver. I said, can we do brass? Yes. And then my next question was, can we melt bullet casings? And the lady really kind of had a visceral response. She backed away from me. And I explained what we wanted to do. And then she actually teared up. Her name was Molly. She said, let's just say, bring me as many bullets as you can, and we'll see what we can do. From there, she handed us off to an organization, a manufacturer named Hutch Manufacturing, and he had to get a special crucible that could be heated to the proper temperature to melt these things down. And so currently, Hutch makes all of our jewelry, but I got to tell you, at critical mass, we may need a second manufacturer.
Wow. Now, of the list of countries that you have ongoing programs in, where do we see you operating Reload Love, and what are some of the major accomplishments that you really look at as I look at the pictures and I look at the various places that you have had to impact? You also build playgrounds
Yes.
in these communities, and
Yes.
a playground doesn't seem like a lot. You think about what impact does a playground really have? What has been your experience? Because not only do you do this, but you go there. You yourself go there. I can't imagine anything with the ability to contain you. So to Skip, I say, Skip, I have like such tremendous respect for you that a man who can lasso a tornado is truly a man of God and a force to be reckoned with, because you're not containable. You're contagious.
I'm going to let him know that. He's going to love that. I'm going to have to live that down later today. Trust me.
Yeah.
Well, we have built 33 playgrounds in various places: Syria, Pakistan, Iraq, Jordan, Cambodia, Thailand, Burma, Myanmar, and we only hope to Uganda. And so quite a few places, and really wherever terror strikes. And as you said, this is an endemic problem. If there are 21,300 kids that have been impacted. So we literally end up running to the bullets because bullets and babies don't mix. So I have been on the windswept plains of Jordan working with Syrian refugees in Mafraq. I was able to crawl through ISIS tunnels in Iraq outside the city of Karakush, and I have crawled through the jungle in Burma to the Karen tribes. Right now, the Rohingyans are being hit really hard in Myanmar. They're on the border with Bangladesh, and hundreds of thousands, maybe a million Rohingyans have run. And so we help everyone, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, because in Myanmar, there are Buddhists who are persecuting Muslims. As a matter of fact, I'm in touch with partners on the ground in the Rohingya area of Burma, and we were really praying for a pastor who was kidnapped a couple weeks ago, and sadly, we found out he was killed. So we try and keep in contact with all of our partners on the ground. A playground is what you said is so counterintuitive. As a matter of fact, it seems foolhardy, right, in light of all of this. But what we found out is that sometimes if you put something of too high a value near bad guys want to steal the thing of value and co-opt it. So there were schools that were taken over by the Taliban, previously. And so a playground is something that they don't know what to do with. It's asymmetrical warfare, so to speak. Okay, who are these crazy people that want to put in a playground? Fine, put in a playground. But, in Syria, boys and girls don't get to play together, right? There are some pretty rough culture barriers. And honestly, if you want to change the Middle East, change the women. You put in a playground, the women can come and have their kids there, and you've got a shot at transforming not just kids, but women as well. So in Syria, our partners let us know that boys and girls are on the playground together. This is unheard of. Boys and girls don't play together. So now you have them on a playground, and you've put a paradigm in there that a parent's never seen. Wow, playground? Is there a rule in the Quran that says no playgrounds for girls? And so now you've provided a paradigm that is something they have to grapple with, and so you've got kids playing. So you are breaking a lot of barriers, that kids, now boys and girls are elevated to equality for a little while. Mothers come out, you have the chance to change a mother's heart, but also a playground is a tool to help overcome trauma. And I use the acronym CAN, C-A-N, to explain what a playground can do. The C stands for calm. If you can get a safe space for kids impacted by terror, that you want to get them somewhere quickly where they don't feel threatened. So a playground is often there with a partner that has a church or a school or something else that is safe. And so we get them to C, calm. A in the acronym is acknowledgement. Kids need to have the opportunity to understand they're not the bad guy. They didn't do something wrong. It's not because they're Sunni, Shia, Kurdish, Yazidi, Christian, Jewish. They're not bad. They just are kids, and you can acknowledge that. And then N is normalcy. The sooner you can return a child to some level of normalcy, the quicker they'll recover from trauma. So it could be a soccer ball. It could be a box of crayons. It could be a playground. It could be a book. It could be so many different things. But so some of these things really work in that triplet of what psychologists say help kids recover from trauma more quickly.
Are you finding that as you go into these countries that this is becoming an ambassadorship for the Messiah without it being Christ-centered, Christ-focused, or requiring that the gospel be preached, that it is the hands and feet of Messiah, and when asked the question, why do you do this? And that is really the groundbreaking question, the one that opens up the door for you to be able to share the gospel, that is what it's doing in a profound way, and that it's an audience that is hungry for love, hungry for truth, hungry for peace, and you bring a message of love, you bring a message of peace, and you bring a message of support. So do you find yourself really kind of in an ambassadorship role, kind of fulfilling what Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 5:17 through 6:10, where you are called to be an ambassador of God, speaking God's very words, and this ministry of reconciliation that he's called us to?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so insightful. I'll tell you a story. In Mosul, before it had fallen and been recovered by the coalition forces, we were at a field hospital there. And the day we were there, a little girl came in and she had a bullet literally in an x-ray right next to her heart. And so for us who want to see God redeem even bullets, and that he can take something that was intended for harm and do something beautiful is so important to us. So just being there that day. However, as we were walking through some of the wings of the hospital, a tent hospital, we got to go into the little boys ward because, again, they keep boys and girls separate. And when we were in the little boys ward, we pulled out a guitar and we're singing songs. And it's amazing what a song and music can do to overcome, some of the sadness. And so you saw this little boy. When a bomb goes off, it's not just the explosion, the fire part of it that hurts kids. There's also sound repercussions. And so just the blowing of the bomb can break things. And this little boy, it had burst both his arms. So he was in casts. And as we were singing, he was doing this with his casts, trying to dance and sing with his casts in the air. And I noticed that a man was observing us. And I know it's uncomfortable for men and women to be together. So we were in the boys' ward. And I just felt the compassion of Christ, Messiah, move through me. And I thought, I'll go over and talk to this man. So I took an interpreter and I asked him, I said, are you okay? Can I pray for you? And he was weeping and he says, in my culture, there is no room for mercy. And yet you are here and you're giving us mercy. And I don't understand why when my own people won't even offer mercy. So at that moment, this is the thought that went through my head, is when someone's under severe anxiety and trauma, you start having this feeling of weightlessness, like you're flying apart or falling apart. And I thought of dogs who have thunder vests, anxious dogs. You put these vests on and it calms them down. So I just went behind him and I put my hands on his shoulders, which again, just touching him was a cross-cultural thing. And I just tried to weight him. And as soon as I did that, he started sobbing. And he was just sobbing. And I started praying over him. And in my head, what I was praying over him was Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leads me beside still waters, restores my soul. And I kept sticking to restores my soul. And then I was at goodness and mercy following me. And so I was praying this over him. And he started crying. And he said to me, we've lost all joy. We've lost all hope. There's nothing left. And so I told the interpreter, can you tell him that I'm praying this over him, the Lord is my shepherd, and that Jesus identified with being a shepherd, and that if you come to him, he will restore your soul. And I'm praying God will restore your soul, and goodness and mercy will follow you. If you follow the shepherd, then mercy follows you. And so we're just having this conversation. I could never have had a conversation with a Muslim man any other way than to be there doing something so counterintuitive that expressed to him mercy, grace, kindness. And his soul was crying out for it. It was crying out for restoration. So yes, it opens hearts in ways you can't even dream.
We're talking with Lenya Heitzig. Ministry is called Reload Love. I actually went to make a donation, and on your donate page, I don't know if you know, but it says we're updating our system, and you can't actually make a donation. So I can't give you an immediate contribution.
Okay, but you can, because this week we opened a site that says dropthelovebomb.com. And if you go to dropthelovebomb.com, we have uploaded, it's a thermometer there that when you make a donation, I think we're at about $107,000 and we're trying to reach 148. So after you make a donation, that little thermometer, when you refresh, will bump up. So every time anybody makes a donation on dropthelovebomb.com, it increases our love. Look, a bomb is an explosion of hate. A love bomb is an explosion of Jesus' love. And so we're wanting to raise money to fly over some specific spaces and drop the love bomb.
Well,
Skip was telling a story this week that he had read about this village in Afghanistan that were used to people bombing. And one day they kept hearing thuds on their roof. And so they were terrified. And after they stopped, they came outside to see what had happened. They thought that they were being bombed. Instead, it was the coalition dropping food packages on top of their roofs and in around their homes. And so really what they thought was harm was bringing good. So our love bomb is that we can drop in and explode some love in some of these areas.
Well, that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Not everything that makes the... I'm going to complete my transaction.
Cool.
Well, I'll actually have to fix it.
Dropthelovebomb.com.
At dropthelovebomb.com. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the humanitarian aid, some of the supplies, some of the medical needs that are out there, and some more of the stories of Reload Love. But while we are taking the break, I want you to visit dropthelovebomb.com, and in the upper right-hand corner it says Give Now. And while we're on break, I want to see that thermometer go up as we continue to support this humanitarian aid to victims of terrorism around the world. The ministry is Reload Love, but the website is dropthelovebomb.com. We'll be right back. Not everything that makes the headlines has biblical importance, but many events that happen around the world do, and you never hear about them. Igniting a Nation is pleased to teach Revealing Prophecy every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. at the Marriott 280 in Birmingham. We will cover worldwide events and insider information that will connect the dots of what's happening around the world with biblical prophecy. If you happen to miss a class, we'll televise each week's class at 10 o'clock Central Time on ignitinganation.com and all our social media outlets. Copies of the teachings will also be available to purchase on our website at www.ignitinganation.com. The Lord meets you right where you are, and so does Igniting a Nation's new live streaming outlets. You can now watch Revealing the Truth, Revealing the Bible, and Prophecy Revealed simulcast live each Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Vimeo, Periscope, and through our website, www.ignitinganation.com. No matter what device you are using, our program will automatically scale so you won't have to miss a single program. And if you happen to miss an episode, you can always subscribe to the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel and access over 1,000 interviews and never miss your favorite authors, special guests, and topics that interest you the most.
There are lots of ways to see Israel, but nothing compares to seeing the land of the book and the people of the book through the eyes of two Jewish believers who can take you on a journey that will bring the entire Bible to life. When you join Rabbi Eric Walker and his #1 rated tour guide, Edo Canaan, in Israel, you'll experience incredible teachings, first-class accommodations, and actually walk where Jesus walked. You will experience the Bible transforming from black and white into living color, and you will never see the Bible in the same way again. For more information, visit us at www.ignitinganation.com/events.
The Lord contends with what contends with you, and Igniting a Nation is committed to bringing to light each and every issue that faces a believer's life. Our live stream programming and teachings take you on a journey to finding biblical truth from a wide variety of experts who share their insights into a deeper walk with the Lord. We have assembled the most comprehensive panel of experts in the fields of prophecy, caregiving, healing from trauma, shame, and abuse, and so much more. We continue to expand our teachings and programming to meet your needs. We're committed to healing the nations with biblical truth. Visit www.ignitinganation.com to develop a deeper walk with the Lord and start your journey to a transformed life. The Bible commands us to study to show ourselves approved, but most study using Bible study tools and not actually studying the Bible chapter and verse. Igniting a Nation is pleased to present Revealing the Bible, recorded and taught each week before a live audience. We take you deeper into the actual Bible and verse in both Hebrew and English and connect the dots between the Old and New Testament. You can attend our 2 classes in Tuscaloosa and Birmingham, or watch the program every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time on ignitinganation.com and all our other simulcast outlets. For more information, visit www.ignitinganation.com/events. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heart lines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're talking with Lenya Heitzig, author of the book Reload Love and head of the ministry called Reload Love. You can find her book, Reload Love, on Amazon and read all about this incredible breakthrough work. You can pull up her interview from November of last year on our YouTube channel, Igniting a Nation YouTube channel, and watch the full story about Reload Love. But we're having her back on because of this special week, which is dedicated to dropping the love bomb. And that's exactly what we want you to do, is to join us, Igniting a Nation Ministries, who partners with Reload Love in answering the call to help the children and the families who are victims of terrorism around the world. As you see the pictures coming out of Israel, as you see the pictures coming out of the Middle East and many other countries, we are ourselves in America looking at acts of terrorism, but not to the extent, not to the percentage of the population, not to entire communities who are suffering persecution by faith, by race, by national origin, by bloodline, by tribal affiliations. Yes. There are just so many, by political affiliations, religious affiliations. The amount of terrorism, the amount of persecution is immeasurable in affecting tens of millions of children. And this is really huge, isn't it? The focus.
When you say tens of million, it's so sobering to just even think about. It's a little bit staggering. And, you know, you were talking about this earlier, that does it point to Messiah? Does it open the doors for that? And this week I was meditating on that idea of Jesus in Matthew 25, where he says, the least of these. And I thought, when's the last time I went to a used car lot and said, you know, I'll take the least of those. I'd like the rust bucket over there. Or, you know, you're taking your kid to the pet store and you go, give me the runt. I'd like that scrawny little thing over there. And, or, you know, you're dividing up food for the kids and one of the pieces breaks and you go, I'll take the broken one. You know, does that ever happen? And yet Jesus elevated the least of these. And he said, you know, I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you satisfied me. I was in prison. You visited. I was in the hospital. You came. And his people said, when? When did that happen, Lord? And he said, when you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. And so he explained that to them. And I was really intrigued because there was something I noticed I hadn't noticed before. You know, it starts with, you know, it's a parable. The king is separating the sheep and the goat, and the sheep are on his right and the goat on the left, and the sheep represent the righteous, right? And so he said, when you do it to the least of these, and he pointed to the sheep on his right, I think he was partially saying when you do it to the household of faith, when you do this for righteous people. But I also think he was saying people like you and I, who may be sacrificing something to be in ministry, and we wouldn't be able to help or to do it or get to the field, or you're supporting a missionary, or when you do it to them, the least of the ministry opportunities, the missionaries, when you help them, you're helping me. And so the Love Bomb this year is helping the city of Karakush. And Karakush was, we've talked about this before, the largest Christian city in Iraq, and that Iraq used to be part of the cradle of Christianity. So much in the New Testament, right, happens in the cradle of Christianity. And so Jonah was in Iraq, and Joel, and Nahum. And so many of the prophets spent their time in that region. And the Christians in that region still speak Assyrian, which is the language of Jesus. And as my husband was telling me, he was just in Egypt, and that the language of the Christians there is Coptic. It's the Coptic Christians, right? That language would be dead if it weren't for the Coptic Christians. In Iraq, Assyrian would be dead if it weren't for the Assyrian Christians who are, holding these together. So anyway, we've come across to this Christian community. And so the Love Bomb this year is going to help them build playgrounds, rebuild some areas, help with some schools, and bring in some supplies. So the least of these, when you think about a Christian, that city had 50,000 people before ISIS. Within a year, there were no Christians, nobody left in that city, from 50,000 to 0. That's the least of these. And the Christians who are trying to go home and keep Christianity in the cradle of Christianity, they are welcomed by little bonuses from ISIS, where they left a bomb in your refrigerator, or an IED in your chest of drawers, or graffiti on the wall that said, "You will bow to Allah, the sword of Allah will break your neck." So these Christians who are coming home, this is no easy path home. They're in rubble, like post-apocalyptic. Their cities have been bombed into oblivion. So I can tell you, when you're helping dropthelovebomb.com, you are helping the least of these. They have nothing.
You, in our first segment, talked about building playgrounds, but the needs go far beyond building playgrounds for children. Trauma relief, medical supplies, academic programs, safe spaces for children. What are you doing in the area of medical supplies and humanitarian aid, and what are your needs? Have you found that medical companies, pharmaceutical companies, medical supply companies are willing to come alongside of you, or is that a need that you have that we can make a call right now to our audience, which is global? And right now we're prime time in the Middle East. And I know that the people who have the technology that are watching us in Pakistan, in Israel, in Jordan, who have steady jobs, that have the advantage of having an iPhone, an iPad, an iMac, a smart TV, who are watching us now, who correspond with me from Egypt, from South Africa, our viewers in Brazil, who correspond with me, who write to me. You have connections and contacts of people who are in industry, who can provide and be willing to provide medical supplies, even expired prescriptions that companies throw into a dump. They have a shelf life that is longer, that can be used in medical outreaches and are not wasted. They might not be at 100% potency, but let me tell you that 75% of an antibiotic is much better than 100% of nothing, and that helping them get these supplies. So what are you doing? What areas are you impacting? And of the 22 countries that you've already been in, 22 locations you've already been in, how are you providing ongoing support?
Well, in some of our medical support, we work with Samaritan's Purse International. My husband serves on the board with Franklin Graham. So I would say people that have tangibles, that probably going to Samaritan's Purse is better, because I have no medical degree, but I do come alongside clinics and hospitals. So when we were in Mosul, we provided a large donation to help the Mosul hospital going, the one I talked about, the girl with the bullet in her heart. Also, when we've been in Thailand and in Burma, there are several medical clinics in a couple different areas that need supplies like this. And so when we're trying to distribute those in the Thailand-Burma area, we work through Free Burma Rangers. And so they have some medical clinics that we have visited and come and worked alongside. So I would encourage them, from that point of view, to jump in, there. And then in other tangible supplies, we also partner with an organization called Kids Around the World. And Kids Around the World takes old playgrounds, like a McDonald's playground, one from your school, and they refurbish them, and then we ship with them to our places in locale. So if somebody knows someone with a playground that's a high quality playground, not just your backyard kids, but a more municipal playground, then the Kids Around the World take in-kind donations of those kind of things that we can upgrade them, spruce them up, and then send them overseas. So those are just some of the tangibles that could be shared with some of our partners.
And the way people can support you are at several different levels. First of all, in the tangible, just buying your jewelry.
Yes.
And so they can get a wristband, they can get a bracelet, they can get something that says it has Reload Love stamped on it, and
Yes.
it carries the message forward, and it's a conversation piece. It's the backside of the shell casing where the impact is. That
Yes.
I don't know what they call that part of the bullet, but that's the part of the
I
bullet.
know the firing pin's there, but it's the end of the bullet. You're right. That's what we use. And you know what? Really, buying a piece of jewelry, we like to say join the lovement. And so sometimes when you have a tangible, when Jesus, the woman, stretched out and reached the hem of his garment, sometimes having a tangible is really helpful. And then we like to say you join the lovement. But we ask that you start telling the story. Once you have a piece, many of our pieces of jewelry are tied to things we do. We have a horse on there that's a Yazidi horse, and then we talk about our work with the Yazidis. We have an elephant on there that is the Burmese elephant, and so we get to talk about some of our work there. We have a camel that represents the Badai desert between Syria and Jordan, where so many of those people fled. So we tie a lot of our pieces. We have a cross that is the Katakush cross. And we have a whole story about that cross and finding one in Katakush. So we do tie our jewelry to the work that we're doing.
I'm looking at it now. You have a brass cuff bracelet,
Yes.
which is beautiful, that just says Reload Love. And it's melted down shell casings and
100%.
recast into a bracelet that says Reload Love and lets you tell the story. A brass feather necklace, Karakush cross necklace, the Yazidi horse necklace that you mentioned. And these are tangibles. And these are something where you can support the ministry by buying something. We're in a gift-giving time.
Yeah.
These are wonderful, and the idea of gift giving is very interesting. You can give gifts that are ministry related and are a living testimony and a living gift and a story that goes with them, which makes it meaningful and is something to pass on from generation to generation. We think about our ages and heirlooms and things that have been in the family, but they only have a family connection because grandma owned this. What if you were able to pass on to your daughter and to your granddaughter a brass feather necklace that tells the story of a community decimated by terror, but the shell casings were collected and melted back down, and this feather necklace is carrying the message of Reload Love. This is made out of a spent bullet casing. These are not new bullet casings. These are spent bullet casings, regardless of where they would come from. But nevertheless, they carry a message, and they are legacy builders. And that is important, that the legacy continues, that Lenya, we praise God that you're with us, but we know that 100 years from now you're not going to be with us, but we hope that the message of Reload Love continues and lives on far past Lenya Heitzig. So this is one of the ways through these, the Lovement, that our audience can participate. You have projects going on that the finances go towards, as well as the humanitarian aid. I want you to think back to some of the stories that when you first, and I want to go back to the first call to action of when God gave you this vision of the very first community that you got involved in, and how that felt, how that came about, how it fell into place for you that really started this movement?
A good friend of mine suggested, when I said I need to find children impacted by terror, that I look at Burma, Myanmar. And honestly, I was gobsmacked. First, I didn't know where it was. That's very embarrassing. And I didn't know its history. And as I started researching it, I found out it's been in a 65-year uprising, civil war, where Burmese ethnics are killing all the other ethnics. And it's been happening for a long time. And then I started researching the Karen tribe, that is one of the tribal areas that have been persecuted. And during the 90s, there were so many pouring over the border into Thailand that Laura Bush tried to point people in that direction. And I found out that the Karen tribe was very disproportionately Christian. And that's because the very first Christian missionary from the United States went to Burma. His name was Adoniram Judson. And he initially wanted to go to India and join William Carey there, but his ship was turned away. So he found he could make passage to Burma at the time, now Myanmar. And he and his wife spent the first few years just learning the language before. And it took 7 years for their first convert. And eventually they made it into the jungles and met the Karen people. And the Karen people have folklore, because not everything's written down. Many cultures have storytellers, right? And so the storytellers had this history, and they said that originally the Karen people was a father with some sons, and one was a lighter colored son, one was a darker colored son. The lighter colored son wanted the people to live by the golden book, and the other son did not, and he persecuted and chased the younger away. And they just knew that someday this son would return with the golden book. And when it did, it would instruct them on how to live, and they would prosper once again. So, of course, when Adoniram Judson comes through the jungle with the golden book of the Bible, the pages, that are golden, many Karen became Christians. And so to this day, I went into the Karen tribes, into that region, and there are whole villages that have said, if you follow the book, we will follow you. If you don't follow the book, we will not follow you. So I've been privileged to meet Christians that go all the way back to Adoniram Judson. And it is completely humbling to know someone laid down his life. His first child died on the boat there. A second child died of malaria. Adoniram Judson was thrown into prison. The prison was a deep pit, and they would put something around your neck and arms that bamboo poles would go through and hold you down at night. So Adoniram Judson gave all so that the Karen people would be able to know Christ. And we've had the privilege to come alongside of them.
Wow. What is the vision for the future?
Really good question. You always ask these probing questions, Rabbi. And so thank you. I think that's part intrinsically what a rabbi does, right?
That's exactly right.
So what we're trying to do now is keep asking Jesus, who are the next people? And my mom, who is not a believer at this time, just sent me an article this last week, and it was like the 11 countries in the world you should not visit, where they tell the UN says, don't go there. And she doesn't like me doing this. I think 5 or 6 of them are on my list of places I want to go. And so I told her, I go, Mom, that was not good, because that's the Sudan. We have been working in Uganda with Sudanese refugees, but we have not gotten into Sudan. And so if God opens the door, we'll go there. The Sudanese, there's a Pastor Moses that we've built him a playground and provided food for him as a refugee, but he wants to go home desperately. And so, if you could support somebody to do that. So that's one of the countries we would like to be in. I have partners in Syria, but I personally have not been to Syria. And we have built quite a few playgrounds there. We've come alongside an orphanage and bought them 100 beds and 100 dressers. And I told you I just was talking to him as the ISIS family members are leaving. So I sent him a text and said, what do you need? What can we send you right now? And he said, we're going to need another playground. So I know that that's going to be, someplace in the future to do more. This dropthelovebomb.com initiative is to go to Karakush, back to Iraq, and work with some of the Christians there. So I know those are 3 areas that we're being very prayerful about.
Good. I'll add one to your list. There are 30 million orphans living on the Ganges River.
Oh, wow.
In North India. Organization, ministry called Tell Asia. They are building orphanages. There are only a handful of Christian orphanages up along the Ganges River to house these 30 million. So they bathe with crocodiles. There are hundreds of children who lose their lives to crocodiles every day. By entering the Ganges River to wash. The women wash their clothes there. 30 million orphans on the Ganges River. The organization is called Tell, T-E-L, Asia. I know that Lenya Cinquanata, who grew up wealthy, her father built her an equestrian stadium at their home and bought her Arabian horses. And she left all that to go live on the Ganges River among the orphans. And so far they've built 3 orphanages. And these are and of course they're right on the border, right where they are, of Tibet. So they have a blending, and only about 2% of the population of India are believers. And this is a Christian work. And so it's very, very difficult for them, especially now that they have such a strong new president in India. So that's one I'll put on your radar, that here are 30 million orphans.
Thank you. I have been to India. I've been to Kerala, to the very tip, because there's a lot of Christians in the Kerala region. But I have not been there, and I will look into it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And we strongly believe. In this last 2 minutes, tell me again, the website is Reload Love, but the website to donate during this week, this Valentine's week, is dropthelovebomb.com.
That's right.
And the proceeds of the book Reload Love go to the ministry of Reload Love. So the book Reload Love is available on Amazon by Lenya Heitzig, and it is the story of this fabulous ministry that Igniting a Nation partners with. And we had Lenya on because it is Valentine's week, it's the Love Week, and time for us to go outside of ourselves. And the money that we would spend, it says the grass withers and the flowers fade. And there's no important week for us to remember that the flowers fade. But
So
the word
good.
of the Lord lasts forever. And you can give a gift that's going to bring the love of Jesus into a community of terror victims, and especially in children, to open the door to the question, why do you do this?
Yes.
And that is where the dialogue begins, when they ask the question, why do you do this? Lenya Heitzig, we love you.
We love you too. It is so great. I always love talking to you. It's so thought-provoking. You always lead me with some trail I need to find and discover.
Thank you for being a part of this, and thank you for being a guest here on Revealing the Truth. We're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.